this computer. Here we go. All right, so let me give you a quick, rather than a quick introduction, I'm going to play. How many of you guys saw the movie Nightcrawlers? Any of you see it with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Oh, yeah.
So the Caspers were asked to consult on the movie. Let's watch the trailer, especially for those of you who haven't seen it. And when we come back, we'll get with the Caspers. You can tell us how realistic this is. So.
Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for a job. I'm a hard worker. I set high goals. My motto is, if you want to win the lottery, you have to make the money to buy a ticket. So what do you say? I could start tomorrow, or even why not tonight?
No, I'm not hiring.
Well, first, go around, get a shot inside the car.
Hey, back away.
I got it, I'm back.
Will this be on television?
Morning news, if it bleeds, it leads.
Are you currently hiring? I'm starting a TV news business.
You're back.
I film breaking stories. Maybe you saw my item this morning with fatal carjacking.
No, I mean, I don't have TV.
Do you have a cell phone?
Yeah.
Does it have GPS?
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're hired.
Okay. We're taking the next right.
That's too fast! You beat the police. I will never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. Excuse me. I have something you'll be very excited about.
You have a good eye. I want you to contact me when you have something.
Something like this.
Think of our newscast as a screaming woman running down the street with her throat cut.
You will be seeing me again.
Residential 211, home invasion.
You gotta call the cops.
And we will, at the right time. We're gonna find the person that drove that car.
Start filming.
I'm Detective Fanieri. I think you withheld information.
That would be a very unprofessional thing for me to do.
It would be murder.
I want what you promised me. I want something people can't turn away from.
911, what's your emergency?
You want all of this?
Oh my God!
I think Lou is inspiring all of us to reach a little higher.
Well, now I want to watch it again. That was it. You think that was a fair depiction of the business?
No, that's all the dark stuff.
Nothing but listen to police scanners and wait for word of murders and car crashes. And then they drive to the scene as fast as they can and they take video.
Excellent.
Officially, these people are known as stringers. Unofficially, they've been called the paparazzi of pain. And they are now the subject of a major new Hollywood movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal. ABC's Byron Pitts takes us inside their world.
Nightcrawler is everything that you don't do. Everything he did is not what we do.
Morning news, if it bleeds, it leads. In Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal plays the man behind the camera.
I'm Lou Bloom. I have some footage for sale.
A hungry freelancer who'll stop at nothing.
You gotta call the cops.
Sorry about that. I blame everything on the stroke. Go ahead. So was that a fair, like I said, you were asked to consult on it. And was it a fair, give Hollywood, theatrics aside, is that how it?
No, the some of the technical elements might have been correct, but
First of all, he went into a house where bodies were.
well, yeah, they got to see the
couch.
movie to know that. Yeah,
Well, yeah. And you don't go into a scene.
you never ever enter a crime scene. I mean, I guess you have to wait for somebody to see the movie to understand. But that depiction is pretty ruthless, pretty brutal, pretty dark.
He
You
takes
don't.
a body that's in a car accident and pulls it out so he can get a better shot of the car and the body. You don't do that. You don't touch anything.
No.
You have
Right.
talked about this when you talk to past classes, and I thank you guys come every year. I'm so grateful. Do you have people in who get into your field who do play on a short field, don't they? Right?
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot about cultivating relationships for you guys with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have, knock on wood, a pretty good reputation with all the stations here. They know what we send in is actually what happened. So, they have no doubt. And
Yeah, I never. I've seen other stringers call and say, "Hey, I got great shit. I got great shit." You don't do that. Because that, on a scale of 1 to 10, that's the 10. No, we don't get the 10. The most I tell them, well, I got stuff. I mean, my camera's happy. It was a great shot, but you gotta be realistic.
Yeah.
So give us the. You didn't start. Both of you didn't start out in this business. You mentioned, I think, briefly how you met, but you didn't start out in this business. John, you for one were. Mary, I always forget. Nancy, I always forget this. You wanted to be cop, was it? Or
I wanted to be a dispatcher.
She wanted to be a dispatcher. I was a police explorer, and I'd always been a photographer. And so, we met actually listening to police calls and on CB radio. So that tells you how long ago that was.
Yeah.
We kind of both had the same interests, but we never really imagined that it would turn into a career. That wasn't our intent. That was all accidental. And if you've got the Gloria Ramirez clip, that might kind of explain that, because we were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, we had decided, we heard a plane crash. It wasn't bad, but it was a plane crash. And we decided to go out and shoot that. That would have been our first story. But on the way out there, we heard Riverside General Hospital calling for ambulances to come to the hospital. And we thought, well, that's really strange. So we diverted to that and went and shot that. And boy, it was the biggest story we've ever shot.
Do you have that? You have that Pete there, clip there, Pete?
So this is it's just ironic that it would be as at that point, hey, you're not thinking this might be, like you said, a career.
You there?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. What, you losing, Nancy?
I don't.
Oh.
So let's, so this turned out to be a very famous story, and like you said, kind of your first.
You can't hear him now?
No, I can't hear anything.
Okay. The earphones probably went dead. So we're going to go to the backup ones here.
Continues. Once again, Barbara Walters.
It is one of the most bizarre medical mysteries in recent memory, and doctors still can't explain it. It happened 2 weeks ago in a Southern California emergency room. A team of medical workers collapsed, apparently after inhaling fumes coming from the body of a dying woman. One of the victims is a doctor, and tonight our doctor, Timothy Johnson, visits her in the hospital where she's still recovering to find out what happened.
The incident that hospitalized 6 medical workers, including one doctor, was so alarming to the staff at Riverside General Hospital that the emergency room was evacuated from the parking lot.
We can do indoor
It has not
dining.
determined what caused the emergency room workers to fall ill while treating a cancer patient who had been brought in by ambulance. Gloria Ramirez, the patient, had complained of breathing problems. She later died of heart failure. While the ER staff was inserting an IV tube and drawing blood, an odor of ammonia was noticed, apparently coming from the patient's blood. To add to the mystery, Dr. Humberto Ochoa, who was not affected, noticed white crystals in the blood.
I don't know what it could possibly have been.
For the autopsy 6 days later, the coroner's office built a specially sealed room, and the staff was protected with hazardous duty suits. Afterwards, everyone was hosed down with decontaminants. So far, the autopsy...
Turn the mic on the camera. So I'm not sure there's a little hair.
We are still dealing with an unknown at this point.
2 days ago, I interviewed the only victim who remains hospitalized, Dr. Julie Gorchinsky, who was working in the emergency room that night.
I asked the nurse to start an IV that about coincidentally at the same time I smelled, ammonia. To me it was ammonia. And I kind of made a comment that, that's really strong ammonia. And I kind of felt, like I was going to pass out then. So I moved around to the other side of the bed to get away from the fumes.
She then told me what she believes made her sick.
In retrospect, which I shouldn't have done, I smelled the blood. And a few seconds later, I wasn't feeling good myself. And just remember waking up being helped to be breathed with a mask.
Julie was often hooked up to a breathing machine because she would suddenly stop breathing. This week, she has been feeling much better.
It's great to go to sleep and be reassured that you're going to wake up without having anybody breathing for you.
However, Julie knows she's a long way from her days as a professionally ranked surfer.
Just laying in bed here, I kind of feel like a 9-year-old lady. My lungs still aren't up to par. I just brush my hair and I'm very exhausted.
As an emergency room physician, you've obviously hooked up people to all kinds of tubes, breathing tubes, IVs, etc. Now you've been on the other end of it. How did that feel?
This experience has completely changed my thinking process. When you do things emergently, sometimes, it's difficult to make the patient comfortable. But I think if I'm in that position, I'll go the 2 extra seconds or a minute to comfort the patient and make, if it is the last few moments, comfortable, because I had a lot of procedures here and it was scary. It was scary.
Tim Johnson is in Los Angeles right now. We, of course, certainly hope that the doctor will be restored soon to full health. But what is her condition at this moment, Tim?
She's been hospitalized at the Loma Linda Medical Center for 2 weeks. She's doing much better. I think she'll be discharged in the near future. Her doctors have studied her and said that they can't find evidence of strychnine or cyanide or organophosphates, the kind of poisons found in insecticides and pesticides. But they don't have a diagnosis, and as her doctor said yesterday, if we don't have a diagnosis, we can't make a prognosis. A lot of uncertainty about what her future is.
Really strange. Now, you're a physician who has worked in emergency rooms, and I'd like to know what you think. What is this business?
Well, in all of my years in the emergency room, I never encountered anything remotely like this, I must say. I certainly had times when I could smell things from the patient's lungs, but nothing that would knock me off my feet. And I must say that the more I've learned out here, the more questions I have. The family has raised some very legitimate questions about the victim. What really happened to her? And I think it would be a mistake to rush to judgment, the initial judgment we all had, that it was fumes from the patient's body or something in the patient's body. It may turn out to be that when we get the final results, but a lot of unanswered questions that I think we're going to continue to follow.
Mystery continues. Thank you.
Remember, we're in touch, so you be in touch. I'm Barbara Walters.
And I'm Hugh Dow.
And for all of us here at 2020, have a good weekend. Good night.
Is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
This week on BuzzFeed, we cover the puzzling case of Gloria Ramirez, or as she's more known on the internet, the Toxic Woman. Her death is
I'm sorry. So there remains today unsolved case, right?
Yes, it is. By the way, we had to switch to our backup mic, so is our audio okay?
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Okay, good.
So how many of you guys have seen the story, Gloria Ramirez story?
Oh, we do have. I'm curious as to how they knew about it, because we kind of missed the boat, it seems like, in pushing that video, because that story happened before there were cell phones, before there was any digital video at all. And some shows, Grey's Anatomy and some others, have done essentially that story about toxic body fumes, but nobody's ever approached us, or very few have approached us for the video, because we haven't gone out there and actively marketed it. And that's one thing you have as a stringer, is you have that archive. So I'm kind of curious, Peyton and Adrian, where you heard about it.
I actually saw it on BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Ah, okay. All right. Yes, I have heard that. Yes.
And so, I mean, you know, almost 30 years later, your bread and butter to think are not anything like, but it's like it's so ironic. Your first.
Our very first story.
Our first story was our biggest and our strangest. And we totally stumbled into it. I shot the video that night. We heard the ambulances going to the hospital, which was strange because they were needed there to take people to other hospitals. They had what they call an internal emergency at the hospital. So they had to evacuate the emergency room, and they were picking up the patients, but I had no idea what had happened. So I just shot the video of them carrying the oxygen bottles in and people coming out on the stretcher and the nurse pointing inside saying something's over there. Shot the video. I worked at CBS Television City at the time as an engineer. Came in the next day and I said, hey, I got the strangest video last night. Somebody said, you got video of that? I go, yeah, why? They said, the fumes came from the lady's body. I go, no, get out of here. That can't happen. I said, yeah. I said, what do I do with the video? They said, you need to go across the street to the local station, which is KCBS, because I was over at the network. They said, and tell them you've got it. And I walked over there. I said, here's the video. They made a copy of it. And I said, what do I do now? And he says, well, you'd be a fool if you didn't go across the street to KTLA and KTTV and the other stations and sell the video to them. I go, is that what I do? They go, yeah. I said, what's that called? They said, you're a stringer. Oh, okay, I'll do that.
And who was it bought it?
Chuck Roberts.
Yeah, Unsolved Mysteries also.
Yeah, Unsolved Mysteries.
And they still don't know what it is.
To this day, that is still an unsolved medical mystery. They literally did an alien autopsy on her. They just saw the hazmat teams. They had an entry team. They had a decontamination team. They had the autopsy team.
If you've seen E.T., the big tunnel,
it was just like that.
Just like E.T.
Absolutely like that in real life. And we've got the only video of that happening. Well, at the autopsy, the stations were there then, but at the hospital when that happened, that's the only video of that in history. Nobody shot any video there.
So we should point out, like, and if you say like you have this unique piece of proprietary video, but you didn't get into this business to get rich.
No.
There's a lot of reasons you got into it. You're adrenaline junkies for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we are. Yeah, that we are. Yeah, we get the same adrenaline that firefighters get and police officers get. And yeah, it can spike. That's why cops and firefighters can retire at 50, because they've gone through so many adrenaline highs and lows in their life, and because of the stress, it does take a toll on you.
How does it work on a given day? And we're going to look at some recent stuff and some greatest hits that you did. But how does take us through the whole process?
Well, you keep the scanners going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's your
You can't have a dinner in peace, Nancy?
No.
Oh,
in fact, I'm worse than
there have been times we sat down at a restaurant, ordered. I always had an earphone in and had the scanner with me. We heard something happen, and we said, you're going to have to pack that meal up to go. We're out of here. And they looked at us strangely. I said, no, don't worry. It has no reflection on the food, but we have to go. There's a fire. And they look at you rather strangely, and then you're off, and you don't know when you're going to be home. So the way that usually unfolds is, you keep the scanners going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in every room of the house.
I have one next to my bed, and my side of the bed, and he has one next to his side of the bed.
So you're constantly hearing a story and wondering, will that be a good story or not? You can hear a brush fire, but if it's a fire that they're going to put all kinds of resources on it, the air tankers attack it and everything, and they're going to get it out before you get there, that's not going to be any good. Now, if you happen to be there when it starts, even if it's small, if you're there when it starts, which I have been, we had one day where we had 3 stories, and that third story was after we said, that's it, we're going home. We already shot 2 stories, and I'm sitting in the parking lot of Stater Brothers, and a guy sets fire to the field and runs off. And so what do? I call 911. Yes, I did that. And I pulled out the camera. And I got the video of the guy walking away from it appeared to be a homeless guy that was living somewhere near that area where he said it. And he, you know, pushing his bicycle across the field after he set the fire and looking back at me. It made great video. And I had, you know, I had the top story. I think it was at 11 that night, because we happened to be right there. Was it a big fire? Was it consequential? Not really, but because we were there, that's what made it the story. So you're always guessing when you hear something happen on the scanner. You'll hear somebody being taken into custody. You'll hear short pursuits. You hear all kinds of crimes, and you know that if you were there at that time, that might be a good story because the pictures tell the story. But if you're going to have to drive 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour to get there, it's going to have to be a different type of a story. It's going to have to be more consequential.
So of course, like every business, but your business must have changed so much since, like I said, about 30 years, right? Now, so everybody's got a cell phone. I guess that's maybe even competition, right?
Yeah, because it's free video. It's free video from the citizen journalists.
But there's way more outlets for you as well. That like you said, that like we were talking with the Ramirez case. Buzz, you know, there was no BuzzFeed when you started.
Right.
You had,
right.
So what's
and I did talk to BuzzFeed about, by the way, to see if they were interested in the video, and they did the story, but they did so without using my video, if I remember right. And they could have. I mean, we would have cut a license deal with them, like everybody else. I mean, the first license deal we ever signed, you know, just blew me away. It was CNN, and it was you sign a license deal for in perpetuity throughout the universe, and all media now known or hereafter invented. That's a big giveaway, but that's how they license it.
And do you still have to? So you can't give it just more like
pretty much, yes, yeah, pretty much. There are always perpetuity licenses, but what you can do is make sure that you don't license them all of the video from the scene. So, you know, maybe it'll be a 10 or 20 or 30-second clip, but I've still got the rest of it, and they haven't licensed that yet. So if they want to do a follow-up and they want to do something in depth, they'll come back to me for more video. Then we cut another license.
But we've talked about this before, and I mentioned a little time. You didn't get into this, and you haven't. You're not joining me once a year just to remember what the hoi polloi, what the masses are like. You didn't get into this to become rich, or can someone become rich as a Nightcrawler, in doing this?
I don't think so, because I think we dedicated ourselves to doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're far from
because
rich.
as a couple that works for us, you know, because, you know, 50 years, you know, we've been married over 50 years now, so that works for us. Other people it won't. If just one of the partners is in the relationship is doing this, you're not going to see the other person. You're not going to be able to say, oh, you know, it is our anniversary or it is your birthday, but bye-bye, I got to go shoot a story. That is not going to work. So my producer, my driver, is right here next to me, and she kicks my ass out of the car, tells me to get the shot, and when I come back, she's got an interview for me.
So Nancy's the driver and the producer. You're the shooter editor, and that's a division of labor here.
Yes, it is. I'm the photographer, and you know, anymore, you know, you see a lot of one-man bands anyway, and I feel for those reporters that have to go out and shoot their own stuff now, and edit their own stuff, because I have to tell you, it's hard to get an emotional interview from somebody and realize, and while you're trying to get this emotion from them, you're looking at the viewfinder, you're looking at the framing, you're looking at the audio, you're looking at the background in the shot. So you can't just interact with them. You have to tell them, okay, look at me, or I don't want you to look into the lens. I want you to look at me. And while they're looking at you, you're not actually making eye contact with them because you're looking at the viewfinder. So To do it as a one-man band, you don't get the kind of quality you can get if you've got a reporter there with a microphone and that interchange with them. And that's where she comes in.
Yeah, I just tell him, I said, talk to me.
Tell me what you saw. And that's what works. That's what it takes.
As you've gone on, have you found that interviews have become more important?
All the time. All the time. The soundbite really makes it. And there'll be in one of the clips I have there, you'll see it's where all these cars on Interstate 15 burned over, a brush fire, trapped. Didn't actually trap, but halted all of these cars on the southbound Interstate 15, the route coming back from Vegas. So there's fire on both sides of the road, and it was blocked by the fire engines. But nobody thought, hey, let's turn around and get out of here. No, they all stood there and they got their phones out and they're going like this while the fire got closer and closer and closer until finally the fire was upon them. Nobody thought to get the hell out of there until it was too late, and it burned up all the cars there.
30 cars.
Burned up 30 cars. So with a spectacle like that, the thing you're now faced with is there are helicopters that heard about this. So all the stations, 5 stations, launched their helicopters. So they're all circling above it. And you know you're in that right place when you hear the drone of 5 helicopters together, Pete. There's nothing like it. that you know you're at a scene when you hear that multiple up there. But the thing is, they can't get the sound bites. So we've wound our way through all the traffic, got on the 15 freeway, got up to the scene. I got my radios strapped to me so I can talk to her, have my yellow fireproof Nomex on, got out of the car, made my way across the center divider of the freeway, which is about a quarter of a mile, got to the other side, and now I had to get the sound bites. And that's what made it work for us. That's the only thing that made it work for us, because all the helicopters had all the B-roll. They had great pictures, but they didn't have this kind of stuff.
Can you guys see this?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's let it, should I scroll? Does it start right here, John?
Yeah, because about a minute into it, or less of that, you'll hear them say, I think we have a life threat. Yeah, we're not good on the audio feed, but now it's Nat sound anyway.
When was this?
That's been that may have been 2 years ago, I think. I don't know. I don't think my audio keyed.
That was a classic car that he was taking to somebody, and it burned up.
You guys spend a lot of money on PPE?
Actually, we get the stuff donated to us from fire departments.
Nice.
They don't use it anymore. It doesn't have to meet any certification for us, so we use their castaways.
It started over at that end, I believe, and then it slowly started to move forward, and then it jumped the lane.
It did.
It jumped the lane, and so they had to stop the.
Oh, it's just what you were saying. She's money. I mean, this is an unbelievable event. It's terrible, but this brings it to.
Way, and then it started to go really quickly up the mountain.
So tell me, at some point, did you decide to get out of the vehicle?
Everyone decided to get out of the vehicle and just move upward, away from the fire.
Was your heart racing a bit? Tell me about that.
Terrified. And then look how close I am to where they actually, they said that they tried to save my car, which I really appreciate.
Right. Can I get your name, please?
Vicky Bailari.
Could you spell the last name?
B as in boy, Eglari.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Excellent reporting, Mr. Casper.
Glad to get out of here? You're glad to get out of here?
Very glad.
So you were here when the fire came up?
Yes.
Tell me, what was going through your mind?
At first, it was a little, okay, it's going to get taken care of, it'll be put out, but then as it started to get closer and closer, just panicked.
So you then did what?
Got out and started running up the hill.
Okay. Could you get your name, please?
Sandra Duarte.
The last name?
D-U-A-R-T-E.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Take care. Glad to get out of here? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so when I do that, I'm fishing just to see if I'm going to get a good interview from them or not.
This must have been quite an experience.
It was. You guys do a great job.
I'm just a photographer. I'm just a fire photographer. So.
We have a new appreciation for the
All right. So at some point you decided to do what?
We decided to go to the hill because of the wind shift.
Yeah, and Pete, I think the rest of the sound is not any good because of the wind.
The vehicle looks like it started. All right, can I get your name? Last name spelling? D-O-N-N-A-M. Okay, thank you.
Or if I stop it here.
Yeah.
So this, you put it together like this, and who did you sell it to?
Oh, everybody picked up that tape. But even though they had the helicopters above it, and the value in it was the sound bites.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't get those because it was extremely windy, and I didn't have a decent shotgun mic on there with a windscreen. I was using the on-camera mic. I had not yet received the mic that I needed for that. So probably 80% of my interviews were not usable. I had to cherry pick for those because I would have had some great stuff if I would have had the right equipment. So yeah, I almost lost my ass on that one.
So if you ever wanted to hear what relieved people sound like, it's the people that you interviewed. Because they're all, why is everybody smiling? Because they dodged the proverbial.
Yep.
Nobody gets an exclusive, huh? So I mean, you can sell it as many stations in a more. I mean that's
right. Yeah, and that was the whole thing in the movie with Nightcrawler. It was like, yeah, I'm going to sell you this exclusive. I have been approached for exclusives. I had somebody from KCBS tell me a long time ago, you know, I want that tape, sell it to me as an exclusive, or you'll never work in this market again. Well, I continued to work for about 25 more years, and that person is now gone. That was an executive producer too.
Wow. So they, for a while, for as long as they would not take, CBS 2 was not taking your footage because you wouldn't go along with that.
Well, no, they just wanted anything as an exclusive.
Yeah, they would have paid us big bucks for it.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that.
No, if we did that, then
we
burn
have
all
to,
the other stations, and they'd never buy.
We have to bend over backwards to treat all the stations the same, because the station you work for today may not be who you work for tomorrow. As a staffer, you're going to move from station to station, and you're going to be somewhere else tomorrow. And I'm not going to do an exclusive with anybody. Not going to happen. So I treat you all the same. They're even sensitive as to who I call first. And that when we were feeding our story, now we feed it with, with a file system. It used to be we fed it with a typical, transmitter that's on the top of the TV truck, microwave to feed it in. So I would have to call a station first and say, hey, I've got a feed for you, feed them the story, tell all the producers about it or the assignment editors on it. Then after that was done, drop that signal, call the next station and do it. So it would take me, if I had 10 minutes of tape, it would take me an hour to feed everybody. And they got really touchy about who I would call first.
Yeah.
So I had to work out a way to feed that to just one station, have that station put it on a feed to everybody else so they all got it at the same time. So that smoothed some of that down because they did get touchy as to who you're calling. They say, hey, no, play with me. Call me first. I can only call one person first.
So mostly, of course, because you're here, the LA market, a good market to be, I would imagine. We have everything. Murders, fires, I mean, everything. And six or seven, you know, and broadcast affiliates and other. Good market to be in, plenty of grist for the mill for you.
And the only true thing I saw on the Nightcrawler movie was the statement, if it bleeds, it leads. And that's how it goes in LA.
And that's changed substantially, though. Yes, there's a lot of opportunities in the LA market, but you also have to remember, for us, the farther you are from LA, the least they care about it. So if somebody's hitting a hit and run and it's on Sunset Boulevard, they care about it a lot more than if it's going to be in Orange County, or it's going to be in Riverside County, or it's going to be out in the desert. So a fatality in LA may be a lead story, but it's got to be at least a triple fatality here. And it sounds kind of crass. And
I'll be even more credit. The first thing some people think of is, oh, what streets are going to be cut off now?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's terrible, but that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got to be. You know, we can't just say, hey, I've got a fatal crash for you. Go, yeah, but what's unusual about it? We get those all the time.
How many of you guys have had the opportunity to cover breaking news? A fire, a crime, generally it would be the aftermath, all the kinds of things, an accident. Any of you have had the chance to cover it? Gang?
I did some light news coverage for my high school newspaper.
So you say light, so you haven't.
So the extent of it was I was their videographer. It wasn't mainly actually news focused, but opportunistically when things came up and I was close by, I usually just dropped over and kind of, picked it up.
But nothing. You haven't seen death. You haven't seen nothing. Nothing that was.
I've seen the fallout of just locally to me. The big crimes that happen, usually just car chases and whatnot, but no death, fortunately.
Gotcha.
It's something you have to really, really give your whole life to. I mean, because it's almost like being a doctor, or you see so many things that you don't really want to see, but that's what sells.
Yeah, you can't unsee them.
Yeah, you can't unsee them.
So, and I'm sure you've been in situations where you've thought about, or maybe you have, Nancy, get out of the car, John, drop the camera, because
you want to go there, huh?
Yeah, you want to
I do, because I've heard the story and it's an amazing story. But
So we were out. We were out in the desert, coming down Interstate 15
from Vegas,
and we outside of Victorville, and we saw a cloud of dust on the side of the freeway, and I stopped the car to see what it might have been.
And he just stayed in the car, and I got out and ran because I knew it had been a car that had rolled. And I figured it was just maybe a couple of people in the car. So I ran across the traffic, and I'm standing on the embankment, and I look down, and there is people all over
scattered everywhere.
So I ran down the hill, and first 4 people I got to were dead. And I'm screaming, people, come help me, because everybody was standing up on the embankment.
It was from a Korean church outing.
And there were 17 people in a van. And so I'm yelling at the people to come down and help me, because everybody was standing there watching me. And they started all coming down. And I ran over to the van, and just to see if everybody was out of there. And I looked in, and I saw this older lady in there crying. She was trapped in the van. And I pulled the windshield open farther so I could get in. And I crawled in by her. Oh, this is emotional. And I said, can you get up? Can you move? And she said, no, my legs are stuck. But she didn't tell me that. She just pointed because she didn't speak one word of English. And I said, is there anything I can do? I don't know if she understood me or not, but she kept pointing like this to her face. So there was some clothing that was in there, and I took it and I wiped glass because she had glass all over her face. And I wiped her face off. And I'm screaming. I said, does anybody speak Korean? Please come help me. And
this guy showed up that you never would have suspected.
Blonde hair, blue-eyed guy, stuck his head over the edge of the car, looked down at me. And I said, do you speak Korean? And he goes, yes, I do.
And he did all the translation.
He told me that her legs were stuck under the seats in the van, and she couldn't move them, and that she had glass in her face and her
And she had
eyes.
signaled to me what was happening to go get the camera. So by that point, I was standing in the middle of this, what's called an MCI, multiple casualty incident, where there's people all over, and they're clearing an area for the helicopter to land.
15, this is on somewhere on the 15?
Yeah, 15 by Victorville.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got out of the car and I saw what was going on, I'm screaming at him, get the camera, get the camera. And then I went and did what I do. Honestly, you're not supposed to be involved in this type of thing if you're shooting it for news, but
you do.
You do. I couldn't just sit there and watch.
You're supposed to be the fly on the wall,
Yeah.
but
And,
we're all human, and you can't just stand there and watch it and do nothing.
And so I'm in this van with this lady, and she's got a death grip on my hand, wouldn't let go of my hand. And firemen finally come up and they peek in, and they said, can you move her? And I said, no, she's stuck under the seat. And he said, okay. So I don't know what they did on her side, but he said, we're gonna cut you out. And I said, you're what?
They threw a blanket over her to keep the sparks off of her, used one of the saws and cut the top off the van.
Yeah, and then they pulled that side of the van away, and they were pulling me out, and she still had my hand. And so I held onto her hand, and they brought us out and put her on a gurney.
And they had those blankets laid out because in a triage, it's like the critical, the moderate, and the minor injuries. So they had her to airlift her out. They had the blanket laid out, and they brought her over to there. She still wasn't letting go.
No, she still had my hand. And finally they were going to wheel her over to the helicopter to airlift her out. And I went to the helicopter as far as I could. And I said, sweetie,
that's it.
That's it. I'm not getting on that helicopter.
Yeah, they don't take ride-alongs in the helicopter anyway. They don't need the additional weight. So.
But after that, it was a big story. The newspaper covered it and everything and interviewed me. And about 3 or 4 days later, her son called me. And I guess it's a Korean thing.
The Korean community was such an outpouring of thank you to us. And we did what anybody else would have done. Right. So they were, they
wanted to take us to dinner, send us gifts, wanted to send us things. And we said, no, please, we don't need anything. We're glad to do this.
Which is kind of a change up for news media because in most cases, you're persona non grata when you're at a scene. So it was quite unusual.
And she did survive.
She did.
She did survive.
And did you have contact? Did you have contact with her after that? Or?
No, she was in the hospital for a long time, for quite a while. But her son kept calling us and giving us updates on her. And
that is the one time where we did wind up getting roped into court over the lawsuit. And they had to take depositions from us as to why we were there, what we saw, and all those things. And I would try to avoid that happening
Yeah,
again.
I'd never again will I do that because they made you feel like fools. They said, well, what makes you qualified to answer these questions? What makes you qualified to shoot?
You asked me a question, you know.
think that your video shows the right stuff? What makes you think so? And I got up and walked out.
Yeah.
I said, I'm done.
They were suing the manufacturer of the tires that blew.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So here you're. So that's you see all ends of the human condition.
Yeah, all ends. Because I think it wound up that out of the 17, I think there were 11 that died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad because it was a pretty steep embankment and the van just rolled. I don't know how many times and threw people out. And they went through the windows and it was pretty nasty.
You almost went, I think one of the times, so it would have been, it would make sense, it would have been during class time, I would say maybe 3 years ago. I think I called you, John, and I think the Las Vegas, the Mandalay Bay thing had happened. And I think you were, but you didn't end up going.
No, we didn't. No.
But I do have a friend that was.
Yeah, we had friends in law enforcement.
She's a dispatcher, and she'd gone there with a bunch of the law enforcement friends that she works with every day, and they were there when the shooting started, and they were dodging bullets. The police officers were throwing them on the ground and covering them with their bodies. And they finally got up and ran across the street, and they saw somebody with a gun, and they thought that person was the shooter, and they started screaming, but I guess it was just security, and they put him in the basement across the street from it.
I do remember that it was a fortunate coincidence. There happened to be a lot of law enforcement that were asked.
Yeah, they sure did.
So I know we have a few other things queued up here. Is there one kind, you can go into, especially if it's a criminal situation, I mean, they're dangerous. Are there things that you avoid?
We've been shot at 3 times.
Yeah, you don't forget the sound of the bullets whizzing by you.
Yeah.
They make a buzzing thing. They go zzz as they go by. So
you just say that matter-of-factly.
It's just one of those things. We followed a pursuit into LA one time, and we were right behind the cops, and the guy got off the off-ramp, and he stopped and turned around and started shooting at the
He shot out through the back window. So if you think of the logistics of that, there's the vehicle on the off-ramp. He's shooting out, the driver's shooting through the back window with the cops behind him, and we're behind the cops. So where does that put us?
Yeah. So that was pretty scary.
Have you covered some of the protests in the last few months?
Yeah, we did.
We have one here in Norco. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Norco. We're not some big city. We have cows, pigs, chickens, horses. Everybody in Norco has horses. And so we're really just a little town. And they decided they were going to come protest in Norco for some reason, because one of our city councilmen said something they didn't like, and they showed up, about 30 of them.
So when covering something like that, you generally have to provide yourself some place to go in case the crowd turns on you.
And we're not liked by that crowd, because
so we had to, as media, you're already targeted. So the best I can do is, when I get out to something like that, identify myself to law enforcement, because law enforcement is just as likely to not consider you news media, and you'll have a problem with them. Because the issue there is everybody is press, and we saw this coming for some time. Nobody is immune when you're out there, because of the way the First Amendment works. If you see it, you can tell others about it. If you see it, you can take pictures of it if it happens out in the open, in the public. And so, but that means everybody can do that. So everybody with a phone is press.
But when we first started,
You had to
it
have a-
wasn't like that. You had to have a press ID to get into scenes. And you had to have one from Orange County, LA County, Riverside County.
Everybody had the coveted CHP,
CHP,
credential.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, this is before. So it used to be, you get the CHP badge pass and the sheriff's media pass, and it allowed you to cover breaking news.
Right. But and the way you had to get those, however, was that you had to submit a tape. If it was for television or radio, or depending upon what your media was, you had to submit a sample of your work along with your application for the press credential. And if they determined that you were legitimate, then you got a press credential, which enabled you to go out and cover more stories. So it's a catch-22. How do you bootstrap that process and have something, that's going to be broadcast if you don't have a press credential? So we qualified easily, but the issue now is that everybody is pressed. Literally everybody is.
So they don't even have press.
Yeah. So nobody
credentials
issues
anymore.
press credentials anymore.
There'd be an endless parade into the sheriff's.
Yeah.
Right.
CHP.
But
By the way, and I probably shouldn't say this while recording, that having those, believe it or not, even in media, having those credentials, the sheriffs, or it could get you out of some speeding tickets too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can unintentionally, yeah.
And you build up relationships.
Exactly.
That's what you do now with the officers that see you out at scenes all the time. We've been around so long, just about everybody knows us now. And, you build up that kind of relationship, and you get a little more perks than the 18-year-old kid that's out with his video.
And fire departments usually love to see you there if you stay out of their way, because you're kind of of the same ilk. They're fire buffs, just like we are, and you get shots of them putting out the fire. You get the same adrenaline they do, and they know that if you show them on TV, they're going to have to buy ice cream for the rest of the guys.
That is, the old saying goes, you guys are firefighters or cops trapped in civilian clothing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, one story I'll tell you, and this will probably be my last story, but we did get caught in a fire one time. We were out, it was the one where the firefighters died. And we had gone down a road to see if there were any houses burning or anything. And we saw a plume of smoke coming over the hill, and it was blocking our way out. And we said we can't leave. So we found an area that was mostly gravel with a little bit of grass on it.
It was called the Esperanza fire. It killed 5 firefighters.
Yeah.
And we pulled in the middle of the gravel, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning. Sun was out bright. It turned pitch black. I mean,
the smoke came in, the wind came up, it got pitch black, and all you saw being blown, the car was rocking, and now you're being hit by all these embers that look like thousands of fireflies crashing into the windshield.
I thought I was going to die.
I thought I was gonna hyperventilate.
Yeah, I told him, I said, if you hyperventilate, I'll kill you. But
so I kept the camera rolling. So when they dug us out of the burnt debris, they'll find this hand holding a tape, and they'll know what happened to us. But it was exciting.
Yeah, it was like it was midnight for.
It got pitch black. It was dark, even though it was the middle of the day.
And then all of a sudden, it just kind of cleared up, and it was light again. But I looked around.
Stuff was on fire all around
us. Swing sets had flown out of the yard and were in front of us.
The fence had melted at the house.
The plastic railing.
And that's when we found out that we were close to that 1,000-gallon propane tank.
Yeah, we didn't know that was there when we parked, but yeah.
So you guys have to think at this point, you're lucky to be here.
Oh yeah. We've come close a lot of times.
Yeah, there've been times. Yeah, Pete.
But we figure if we're gonna go, we'll go together.
And you're definitely one of my favorite couples of all time. And you never ever talk about stopping. I know you took the motorhome on the road this summer, but
oh, we had the fire gear and the news gear with us in the motorhome, yeah. And actually,
you never know.
Actually, we were in Grass Valley, and there was a fire up there, 10 minutes up the hill from there, but it was overshadowed by the 1 million acre fires in the Bay Area.
Oh,
yeah.
And this may have been a spot even from it, who knows? But because the skies up there were all brown. The air quality was terrible. The sun was orange. It was difficult to breathe. And we went up there to shoot a wedding. So I'm going to have to figure out how to make the wedding look good because the skies look terrible.
Oh, this poor bride, because of the COVID thing, she's had to cancel her wedding twice. And this was the third time. And her maiden name is Jones. And the fire up there was
from the Jones fire.
Was called the Jones fire. And we thought she was going to cancel the wedding. She said, this wedding's going on. I don't care what happens. And it did. It was the view she had picked out to say her vows.
Oh, it would have been gorgeous.
It was gorgeous.
Up on the top of a mountain in a clearing with tall pine trees on both sides and a great vista. And it was all smoke. Couldn't see a thing.
What makes it more memorable?
Yeah.
Is there a quickie we could look at for the road? We'll go. Let me scroll through your Facebook.
Yeah, let's see what else there was there. I've got to refresh my memory when I uploaded those clips.
Got the protest on there. Got the nursing home for the.
There we go. You can see this, right?
Yeah, huh?
You gonna pick one out?
Well, is there any Christopher Dorner there?
Oh, geez. Do you guys, this is about 7 years ago, 8 years ago?
I guess it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Anyone in the class remember this? It was the worst possible. Guy was military trained, a survivalist, and he was a murderer on the loose. He killed in LA County. He killed started in Orange County, right? He killed the couple. Let's see if this is then LA, and then into the ended up at Big Bear, right?
Yeah,
in Corona, he shot 2 cops, and then I think he shot one in Riverside, and then went up the hill.
So if I
don't see it there.
Facebook page, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. There was a link to it. There's a link to it on the Casper news footage page. I believe there is. Yeah.
While he's doing this, do you guys have any questions?
You all want to get in this business?
Huh.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, there is adrenaline in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, we're not. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're not search optimized, and that's my fault. But yeah.
Is this?
It'll actually be it's CasperNewsFootage.com. But it doesn't, it's not so big on the searches because it's just the front end for our feed. Okay, and then I think
here it is, Christopher Dorner.
Okay, yeah. Tells you how old that's been.
I'm sorry, guys. So this is quite so. If you can imagine, we haven't had one like this in a while. It's all Southern California. So we were all on edge for like 3 days.
Yeah. This guy was a skilled marksman, armed to the teeth, and just started shooting cops that he had a grudge against. Did some in San Diego, Orange County, Riverside County, Corona. Then he went up into the mountains to hide out, and it was a big show of force. It really was. They made a landing zone at the command post there. What happened is he set fire to his truck out in the forest, which, somebody reported the smoke, and then we knew something was going on. The idiot would have left it as it was, just abandoned the truck. Nobody would have known. But no, he set fire to it. And so they reported the smoke, figured out it was Christopher Dorner's truck, and that he was wanted for multiple murders. So they set up a command post up by Big Bear at one of the ski resorts up there. And little did we know that when they brought in the armored vehicles, the helicopters, a big armored search for him, that he was in one of the cabins overlooking the command post. He had taken the couple hostage, had them bound and gagged in the cabin, and he was looking out the window, watching everything that was happening at the command post while this was going on.
Anyone recall? So you guys would have been 10, 11. This
Yeah, you guys would have been pretty young.
was terrifying.
Yeah.
And then they ended up basically burning.
Somebody reported they had a sighting of him. He hightailed it down, partway down the mountain, hid in a cabin, and the sheriff's department, as they like to say, well, it's kind of military talk, they pretty much lit it up. They lit up the cabin. They were not restrained at all. Fired multiple rounds in there, tear gas in there, burnt the whole cabin to the ground. Found his body in the basement later. But there was a KCBS KCAL reporter that, if I remember right,
Evans.
Yes, happened to be there.
Careers are made in sounds.
Absolutely. He went to the network.
He got behind the police barrier, right? He was the only reporter.
Yeah, and he managed to get there because he had heard it on the scanner. But that day set in concrete the resolve from the sheriff to never let citizens listen to scanner traffic again from his department, and set a process in motion that now has resulted in San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, including all their contract cities, Fontana, Rialto, Bloomington, everything in San Bernardino County is now encrypted, and nobody listens to them on the scanner anymore. You cannot listen to them.
So in your world, Carter Evans is not a hero.
No.
Real quick, my neighbor was a 35-year LA police. By the way, if you guys ever, just from the standpoint of a resident, it's great to live next to cops because they watch your whole block. They know, they know everything. If you guys ever had this experience, we have family, they know everything that's going on in every house.
We have one across the street.
35-year LA police. So he knew what happened with this guy Dorner, Christopher Dorner. Got kicked out of the military, ends up at LAPD, right?
Yeah.
And they disciplinary problem, and they want to fire him. He goes before we'll say the internal review, and this guy Randy, I forget his last name, a police officer, does the review, and he approves this guy should be dismissed. He's a bad cop. He blamed this guy, and he started his murder spree by killing the guy's daughter and her boyfriend in Irvine, right? It was a UC.
Yes, it was.
And so my neighbor knew it, he knew a lot of stuff that wasn't even, that story didn't. So it started on a Sunday night. There's no crime in Irvine, right? A young couple killed in a parking garage. Like, what? And then he would have killed a post, he went up, so it's like Rambo, but a bad guy.
And one of the things that went bad that made that worse than it should have been is that there were two LAPD that were on him, and they knew he was in the Inland Empire, and they had eyes on him, but they didn't tell anybody in Riverside what they were doing. They didn't tell anybody in the county what they were doing, and they were out of radio range of LAPD when they had eyes on him, and he opened up fire, and they didn't have a way to communicate except get on the phone and call somebody. And by that time he was in the wind, and he was off into Riverside, and he shot an officer there.
I'll never forget what my neighbor, and total aside, 35, you see this too often, 35-year police officer, he makes it to retirement, and within 2 years, he stressful job. His body gave way and he passed away. He said the thing was going on, it went on over like 3 days. He told me that whole backstory, and he goes, and this officer who reviewed his case, he goes, Pete, this was the most decent, by the book. And when they burnt the guy alive, I said, what do you think about I said, what do you think about that? He goes, Pete, there's some people who deserve killing. And that was no, in his case, it meant Paul Stalker. And Chapman ended up by, you guys will see it, his house. It's on Center Street. I used to live on campus. It's a really nice, unique house just before the dorms on North Center. So Chapman bought it now, and I think it will be for like a dean or a top dog. You guys have any questions for the Caspers?
What's your background?
Oh,
I'm confused on what your background is.
Pre-Nightcrawlers.
Yeah, I'm a broadcast engineer. I spent my career at CBS Television in its heyday doing, as an engineer on entertainment stuff, Price is Right, soap operas, all the stuff that had happened at CBS. So where that helped me in this career is that I was able to figure out ways to get my video from where we shot it to get it to the stations. Because we started out, having to drive a recording, a tape from here to LA. And so you could only shoot one story a day. And because you had to go to all the stations to make a copy of the tape and then come back again. And so I used my experience in engineering to figure out how to get it there, because there was no internet then. So that's part of what you have to do. Even now, being an engineer can give you a heads up, but you have to find the best and the fastest way to get the video in. But remember, you're always competing with all the free video too that comes from all the citizen journalists.
And I was just a mom. I was a mom with 4 kids, and
she wanted to be a police dispatcher.
I wanted to be a police dispatcher, but I think mom came first. And I had 4 kids in 5 years, and so they were all babies. And I raised them, and then when we started the business, they were teenagers. So they were all okay on their own.
But when I worked at CBS and I was an engineer, that's not very glamorous. So people say, well, what do you do for CBS? And I say, oh, I'm a news.
You sit in the control, not control, you sit in the technical operations center.
Right. Yeah, well, sometimes you're in the control room. I've gotten applause for fixing a camera on Price is Right. You sit in the control room next to the video operator and with a technical director, and you spring into action when something goes wrong. So if somebody's leasing a studio and paying thousands of dollars an hour, tens of thousands of dollars an hour to use that studio, and it stops working, then it's on you to get it fixed. So you report to the technical director and you tell him, hey, stupid, you're pushing the wrong button. And that's how you earn your money. But
we better let them go. It's 9:30.
Yeah, but
I'll bet you, Julie mentioned that she's been in the station every day. I guarantee there's been an engineer at the station every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
An engineer. So you went from the most that's a date. You were a mom, you were an engineer, to the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, to the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling if we're all here, well, I hope we are, we'll be doing this again next year.
Yeah, probably.
All right. And I'm sure that Isaac is going to go into radio, right?
Killer pipes. Thank you guys very much. Greatly.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you with us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I will be posting the syllabus course outline real quick. It's grading in this class. I'll give periodic quizzes, just general stuff on what our guests discuss, and we'll have 2 short papers, one in the middle and one at the end. That'll all be on the course outline I'll have out by the weekend. You guys have any questions going forward? Hope you had learn some stuff tonight. Any questions about the class or anything? We're good. You can, hey, you know, we go. I'm going right through. Obviously, you're all at home. Take your breaks. You know, rather than taking like if we were alive. And got a great class. Won't see you next Monday. Good. Used to be first week. It would be street fair this weekend, right?
Yeah, it would.
Oh well. Have a great first week of school. Won't see you next Monday. We got killed a long time. My buddy Gary Reynolds with ESPN LA. Tom Fuhrer was does the Olympics. Fox Sports. So great stuff in 2 weeks. And thank you guys very much. Hopefully the eye's a little more open next week than 2 weeks too. So you guys have a great week. Email me, call me if you need anything. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
All right. Good to be back.
Yeah. Same here.
See ya.
See ya.